According to two new polls, the majority of Americans now approve of the president's job in handling the coronavirus pandemic. And we're even seeing Democrats, some of Trump's fiercest critics, singing his praises. Cuomo of New York, Newsom of California, that's New York and California's governors, thanking the president. And most shocking to me was Ilhan Omar actually saying she was in unison with the president on this one. More surprisingly, progressives were angry to find out it was Democratic leadership opposing this stimulus package plan because apparently Trump, the Republicans, and the leftist progressives are all in favor of giving a stimulus check to American citizens. It was the Democrats they actually opposed. But the reason these polls have flipped in Trump's favor, shockingly, is because more Democratic voters are starting to recognize that Trump is doing a good job on the coronavirus. Now, perhaps this is because of the praise of Cuomo and people like Cuomo, Newsom, and Ilhan Omar. Or it could just be that the fake news narrative about Donald Trump is being shattered. Now, it is true. I've criticized the president for this early on, that I felt his reaction to the coronavirus pandemic or the risk of one was fairly weak. But I felt like instead of ragging on Orange Man all day, the appropriate response is, what can we do better? Since then, Donald Trump has done better. Apparently, the story is Tucker Carlson went to Mar-a-Lago, met with Trump and told him to take it seriously, and the president started doing it. Unfortunately, the president didn't trust the press. Now, there are still some people in media that are trying to push a fake narrative that no matter what Trump does, he is wrong. This is bad for the country because you can see how they lie all the time, and thus the president doesn't trust them and the people don't trust them. In one of the most shocking polls yet, Edelman Research found the least trusted group of people to inform anyone about the coronavirus is it's journalists. They have no support from the American people, and the president is earning it. Early on, Donald Trump may have been a bit weak, but he did take some serious action. He shut down travel from China to the U.S. in some capacity. And for this, the media smeared him, saying it was the wrong action. Yet now we can see all of these other countries around the world shutting down their borders. And surprisingly, the CDC actually made the recommendations for the U.S. to close its border. And Dr. Fauci even said that Trump's action in doing this was good for the country. The narrative from the media, no matter what, is Orange Man bad. But there have been some cracks in the foundation. MSNBC's Joe Scarborough and CNN's Dana Bash praised the president. I've even got a fact check for you. People didn't believe it. On the left, the idea that CNN would have praised Trump seemed so outlandish that USA Today actually fact-checked it. True. That's right. CNN praised the president. So let's jump right into this and figure out what's going on. And I want to show you some of the policies Trump has enacted that he's receiving praise across the board for. Politico says the majority of Americans now approve of Trump's coronavirus management. Before we read into this, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, share this video. Dare I say, the echo chambers are actually breaking, and Democrats are coming around to support this. And I have tremendous respect for those that would come out and recognize now is the time to come together. The people that just want to run the Orange Man bad narrative because it generates clicks are hurting us at a time when we need to figure this one out. Now is the time to actually stop the bickering. Also, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe. Click the subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell, because YouTube actually is reducing recommendations for channels like mine, especially now that we're facing the coronavirus pandemic. I'm just gonna let you know, I have a couple channels and I've been facing more demonetizations than I've ever in the entirety of my YouTube career because they don't let you talk about coronavirus. Fortunately, on this channel, they somewhat allow me to, but I'm still getting flagged fairly often. So I just want to let you know, it is a serious risk in these times. And I'm shocked YouTube would be doing this, but what can they really do? Everyone's kind of freaking out. YouTube's not been very good on this, very good at this for a long time now. So make sure you subscribe. Let's read the story. Politico says, an ABC News Ipsos poll released Friday reports that 55% of respondents approve of Trump's management of the public health crisis, while 43% disapprove. The latest figures represent a boost in the president's rating from the previous iteration of the survey, published 1 week ago, which showed only 43% approval for Trump and 54% disapproval. The uptick in public sentiment comes in the wake of a variety of measures the president has taken to combat the rapid spread of COVID-19 within the U.S. Trump has been widely criticized for his initial response to the pandemic, as well as his administration's inability to quickly ramp up testing across the country. Since last Friday, Trump has declared a national emergency expanded the European travel ban, urged against group gatherings of more than 10 people, signaled his support for dispensing checks to affected Americans, and invoked the Defense Production Act, although he has stopped short of actually triggering the statute. Majority of Americans, including Democrats, are supporting the president's efforts to close down the northern and southern borders, end migration on the northern and southern borders, shut down travel from Europe and China. This is remarkable because Trump, these are core features of his campaign, bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. and securing our borders. And now even Democrats are supporting it. That's surprising. With the Defense Production Act, Trump can essentially snap his fingers and bring the manufacturing back from China to the U.S., something he has long been trying to do. And he's been successful to some degree. Now, it's not just this poll. There is another one. But first, we'll take a look at, the Democrats here. We have this image here. We can see 55% approve. Interestingly, though, Democrats only 30% approve and 69% disapprove. The reality is we're still seeing partisan lines here. Of course, Republicans approve of Trump. They're giving him A+ marks across the board because, let's be real, they love the guy. What is surprising is the shift in Democrats. Some people have asked whether or not this would be good for good for the president for reelection. And I often felt like Trump was invincible. But as soon as this economic crash happened, or I don't call it a crash is a specific thing. But when the economy started taking a big hit, I thought maybe this is it. Maybe Trump will now struggle to get reelected. But the reality is, I think it's actually winning over Democrats for him. It's pulling people to his side. It's exposing the media narrative as lies. And now people are finally being faced with reality as to why Trump wanted manufacturing back in the U.S. and why he wanted to secure his borders. This is not me saying every single policy idea he has is good. There's still many people critical of his healthcare plans and what's going on in that department, but at least the core features of his campaign, border security and China, at least people are now seeing that he was right on this one. This person, Sam Stein, says Trump's approval here is bolstered by an increasing number of Democrats who believe he is handling the crisis well. But we do have another poll. This is a Harris poll showing Trump's approval rating overall 53% and his handling of COVID 56%. This to me is really incredible because it shows that there's actually a decent percent of people who don't like Trump, but do approve of how he's handling this crisis. Newsweek says Donald Trump's fiercest critics are praising his handling of the coronavirus. And it's something I've talked about over and over again, but this really is shocking. This is something that's giving us a common cause. I made a video, and if you go on this channel, you might see it where I talk about a lack of purpose and responsibility. People are now feeling that purpose and responsibility, and they are being unified by this. It's an invisible threat, but it is a common enemy, which is actually bringing people together. For all of the bad that we're facing, there is still a light at the end of the tunnel. Surprisingly, amid Trump's critics calling him out, USA Today ran a fact check. Did CNN's Dana Bash praise Trump about coronavirus? Well, certainly it was so shockingly absurd that the Orange Man Bad Network would praise the guy that USA Today runs a fact check on it. And guess what they've determined? It's true. Dana Bash made several positive comments about President Donald Trump's tone and demeanor during a press briefing on the spread of COVID-19 in the United States. We rate this claim true because it is supported by our research. There is no reason to believe that Bash's comments were disingenuous or that available video of statements were doctored in any way. Surprise, surprise. People are coming around when they're realizing too many in the media are lying to you. And we have this thread here from Lindsay Fifield of at Heritage. I believe it's the Heritage Foundation. I could be wrong. But she says, I took a break to read back and see how the media covered Trump's January 31st announcement barring entry into the U.S. from China. Hoo boy. Many in the scientific community beclowned themselves because their hatred for Trump blinded them and does to this day. Take a look at this. It's a story from the New York Times. Trump administration restricts entry into U.S. from China. We can then see this. Here's a quote from the article. At this point, sharply curtailing air travel to and from China is more of an emotional or political reaction, said Dr. Michael T. Osterholm, an epidemiologist and director for the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota. Here's another one. She says, flashback to Washington Post, quoting the Chinese FM slamming the Trump administration's travel ban and noting that WHO, the World Health Organization, was against Trump's move to stop entry into the U.S. from China. saying, in disregard of WHO recommendation against travel restrictions, the U.S. went the opposite way. The ministry's spokesman said in English language messages on Twitter on Friday, where is its empathy? That's right. Here's one. The travel ban to China was driven by, quote, conservative lawmakers and far-right supporters of the president. Public health experts, however, warned the move could do more harm than good. Think about that. Trump's travel ban was driven by the far right and conservatives, but even Democrats are coming around to supporting it. Yeah, you're losing your stranglehold, and this fake narrative is breaking apart. From The Verge, 131, apoplectic that Trump was going against WHO recommendations. And look at this gem from Vox.com, where they said the evidence on travel bans for diseases like coronavirus is clear they don't work. They're political theater, not good public health policy. And what do we have now? Dr. Anthony Fauci on MSNBC. U.S. stopping travel, quote, very early from China has gone a long way in the fight against the coronavirus. And people seem to love this guy, Anthony Fauci. He's giving us advice. People trust him. The first response is a quote from Chuck Schumer on Twitter. The DNC was against Trump's travel restrictions. Schumer said the premature travel ban to and from China by the current administration is just an excuse to further his ongoing war against immigrants. There must be a check and balance on these restrictions in February. Now we know everyone in the world seems to agree. Trump was right. We need to shut down the borders. I've mentioned this time and time again, but I've got to point it out in this context. We even see that in the European Union, in the Schengen zone, Germany is closing its borders to its fellow European Union member states. That's just undermining the principle of the European Union as it is, but that's how important it is to save lives. I saw this. Coronavirus shows off Donald Trump's single greatest accomplishment as president. And you would think, based on the title, they're praising the president. No. This is an opinion piece for someone writing for CNN, a legal analyst, refusing to accept responsibility for their fake news. Trump enacted a travel ban. They accuse him of ignoring the crisis. Well, I think it's fair to criticize Trump for downplaying the initial reaction. He did take action, and he is being praised for it by medical experts. It wasn't one, all or nothing. It wasn't like Trump literally did nothing or literally did everything. No, it's nuanced, as most things are. I think he could have done a better job, but hey, he did this, and it turns out he did something early, and he did it right. Well, now, of course, CNN doesn't want to explain. They say his astonishing success isn't that he's doing the crisis right. His success, here's what he says. His success isn't at leading a desperate nation. Instead, coronavirus has exposed the real success of the president's unyielding assault on the media during his time in office. Many in the public don't know whom to trust anymore, and they're blaming Trump for it. Trump is a product of the fake news. He did not create the media. He did not make an entire industry in this country flip and become untrustworthy. They are just untrustworthy. And of course, there's tons of data about this. Edelman says that journalists are the least trusted individuals to inform people about the coronavirus. A person like yourself, 63%. Government officials, still low, but much higher than journalists. People don't trust journalists because journalists, as we just heard, it was the scientific community, but many journalists have, I agree, beclowned themselves. No matter what Trump does, it's wrong. All the way, every step of the way. Donald Trump made a statement. When he announced that we were going to be banning travel from Europe, Don Lemon went nuts on his show, screaming at Kasich, saying Trump wasn't giving us accurate information. How can we support this man? He won't tell us what's happening. Harumph, I say. Don Lemon seeming to forget that every president needs to be clarified, and that's why the press corps literally exists. Mr. President, you said this. Did you mean this? You did. Thank you very much. If every president gave out perfectly clear information, you wouldn't have a press corps. That makes no sense. So Trump made a statement. Some of it wasn't clear, and often he's made some statements that have been incorrect and have been immediately clarified. People need to get over themselves. They're freaking out. Now, I want to point something out about reelection with this tweet from Will Chamberlain. He is a Trump supporter. He runs the website Human Events, and he said, FDR won 3 elections during the Great Depression. Voters will forgive a lot if the president is providing aggressive leadership to solve the crisis, but they won't forgive Trump downplaying COVID-19 if it gets worse. And I think Trump is now showing us that he's providing that leadership and the American people can see it. but about the media and how they've beclowned themselves. As I mentioned earlier, those previous comments were about scientists who hate Trump so much they couldn't accept that he was right. Take a look at China's Xinhua News. That's their state news agency. It's a distraction tactic. It's racist. They say, but he's doing it so people are talking about that instead of his lies and incompetence. Are you kidding me? I don't care what you have to say, China. I don't care about your propaganda. You're trying to go after a president that has the majority of the American people's support as he's trying to deal with a problem you caused by lying, withholding information. Well, guess what? Not to be upstaged, Vox.com has also beclowned themselves. Trump's new fixation on using a racist name for the coronavirus is dangerous. The president is stoking xenophobia with his rhetoric about the coronavirus. Ebola, Zika, West Nile, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. Need I go on? Diseases are often named for their regions, and Trump isn't letting China back away, and he's not giving in to their propaganda. It's probably one of the reasons Americans are supporting him now. But of course, you still have mindless drones in the media saying the same garbled Chinese propaganda. I don't know why, but let me show you this from the Federalist. Now, typically, I don't really use the Federalist, but this is a collection of video clips from Stephen Colbert. You see, recently, Stephen Colbert shot a video in his backyard, next to a little fire pit. And he said that Trump was, it's basically the same thing. Trump's racist for calling it the Chinese virus, even though everyone in media in January was calling it the exact same thing. Well, I can't actually show you the jokes made by Stephen Colbert, because in today's day and age, the jokes made by Colbert are extremely offensive to, let's just say, a marginalized group. If I showed you the jokes he actually made or said the things he said, YouTube would probably give this video a community guidelines strike. So who does Colbert think he is to build up? There was actually a period where Colbert was making extremely offensive jokes about Asians. Now, I don't mind the jokes. I get it. Free speech and humor. And that's why we used to like Colbert and Jon Stewart. When Colbert was called out for his offensive jokes, what did he do? He doubled down. A hashtag cancel Colbert went viral. He did not care. He doubled down. He made more jokes and said it was funny. Today, he has the nerve to criticize Donald Trump. Well, let's talk about policy as we get closer to wrapping this up. This is actually a really awesome story. Apparently, Chuck Schumer urged President Trump to invoke the Defense Production Act to rush medical equipment to providers. The Senate Minority Leader is in the middle of negotiations with Republicans and the White House over a massive relief package. What's cool about this is apparently, here's a quote, POTUS told Schumer he would invoke the act, and then POTUS yelled to someone in his office to do it now. That's the quote. Schumer apparently was on the phone with Trump, and Schumer said, Trump, do this. And Trump was like, you got it. And then he yelled while they're still on the phone, get it done. And it's happening. Trump's staunchest critics are praising him. And I got to say, it's absolutely incredible. What's really interesting here now, citing coronavirus, Trump will announce strict new border controls. The administration, citing the coronavirus threat to detention facilities, plans to turn back all undocumented immigrants and asylum seekers to Mexico. There are Democrats supporting this right now, which is one of the most shocking things to me. When faced with a real threat, people are now realizing why what Trump was saying was so important and why he was right. It's easy to say we don't need it when you're safe. The anti-Second Amendment people in their homes in a safe, low-crime neighborhood have no problems. Then the disaster strikes, and what do? In California and many other parts of the country, New York, people are flocking to stores to pick up self-defense weapons for their homes. The narrative flies out the window and they realize, you know what? Maybe there really is a reason that we need to protect ourselves. The New York Times reports the Trump administration plans to immediately turn back all asylum seekers and other foreigners trying to cross the southwestern border illegally, saying they cannot risk allowing the coronavirus to spread through detention facilities and among Border Patrol agents, 4 administration officials said on Tuesday. This is 3 days ago. Trump announced this. And the support for Trump has gone up since then. That is incredible. But what's even more incredible is that this is coming from the CDC's recommendations. So Trump was right this whole time. That's what we see. On Saturday at midnight, the U.S. will implement CDC recommendations to immediately institute blanket refusal of entry for anyone on both the northern and southern U.S. border that does not have the proper documentation for lawful entry. This replaces the existing practice of processing and holding in Customs and Border Protection facilities at the border those attempting to cross. Trump later clarified that all attempted border crossing individual will be returned to their original country of citizenship. TechCrunch calls it an extreme step, and the White House claims that it's been made to address the fact that border facilities are unable to follow CDC best practices for avoiding COVID-19 transmission while continuing to deal with migrants in the existing manner. I think when you have these policies that Trump has long called for now being supported by some Democrats, that to me says landslide 2020. I don't know what else to expect. I know the market's down. When we get through this, however long it takes, the market's going to skyrocket. The Daily Signal reports coronavirus exposes how West Coast progressives failed the homeless. Well, there you go again. Not only is Trump is said to be doing right by the American people, criticism is flying at Democrats. It's not just about the homeless crisis, which is a serious issue, and it does primarily affect Democrat strongholds. It's also the fact that progressives want this relief package. Republicans want this relief package. And I don't know if the relief package is a good thing. Apparently now they're proposing $1,200 to all people who in 2018 made a certain amount of money. I mean, that was 2 years ago. I don't know if that makes sense. But you do have progressives and Trump supporters on the same page. What you don't have is Democratic leadership. So let me just lock this one down. Not only is the media coming under fire, some in media are actually starting to praise the president. People don't trust journalists at all. More people support the president's coronavirus efforts than they do trust the media. Democratic leadership is being slammed for opposing something that populists are calling for. And we can see now the cracks in the system in the West Coast. The progressives have failed the homeless, and this problem has become seriously dangerous as these vulnerable people now are likely to contract the coronavirus, and we can't do anything about it. Trump is now shutting down the borders, but he's doing it after other countries already did. They tried smearing him for it, and now we can see they were wrong. So I'll tell you what, I'll wrap it up there. But if you want to support this video, share it with people. Let them know. Most people are coming around to recognizing, while Trump is not perfect, he is not right every single step of the way. Not everything he's done has been correct. There are some things he was right about. Even Bernie Sanders is agreeing with Trump more than the establishment Democrats who don't know what they really need. But I will end with saying Chuck Schumer calling up the president saying, "You got it, buddy. We'll take care of this." Cuomo and Newsom supporting him. I think things are turning around. I think Trump's approval rating is going to skyrocket after this. It's already going up. And I think come November, Trump will be recognized as a wartime president and he will likely get reelected. Now, I know a lot of people probably have questions about my preference for the election, but I'll just leave it here. I'm fairly ambivalent most of the time. Not someone who's been adamant about voting, but I think we're going to sit through this one and see how things play out to determine whether or not someone like me or other moderates would consider voting for the president. We're not there yet. There's still a lot to be done. And there's a lot of steps that have to be, we have to do in order to protect the American people. But let me just say, credit where credit is due. I, like many others, am now recognizing, and I've recognized this for a while, that Trump does do good things. But for now, he's doing a really good job. Not perfect, but he's doing a good job. The best we could hope for. Or as Ilhan Omar said, she's in unison with the president. And for me, wow, if she's bold enough to say that amidst the resistance, woke leftists, orange man, bad crowd, then she must really mean it. Because she knows it's not going to be good for her to her constituents. It must be true, right? I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. And I will see you all then.